we're live in the Axminster Skills Centre with another Bringing the Skills Centre to Your Home video. We can't get our customers coming to us in the Skills Centre at the moment, so we've decided to bring the Skills Centre to you. Now don't panic, this isn't the end of Colwyn's wood turning videos. If you've been following those for the last few weeks, or many previous weeks, there'll be another exciting wood turning wizardry video by Colwyn tomorrow at the same time at 4 o'clock. In addition to those, we've got every Wednesday. Now, Colwyn's has been kind of turning Tuesday. We've gone with a, bear with me, a Wouting Wednesday. It kind of works maybe, I don't know. I'm blaming Ben for that one. So with me in the room, we've got Ben behind the camera. He's one of our wood turning tutors here, our woodworking tutors here as well. And he's going to be able to handle any questions you've got. So we want to encourage those questions. If you've got any queries about what I'm doing here, anything you want to see going forward, like I say, this is going to be a regular spot every Wednesday. We're just trying to build up your routing knowledge and share our experience with you guys. So as said, today we're going to be looking at routers, and today is very much an introduction to routing. We're going to look at 1/4 inch routers, we're going to look at 1/2 inch routers and kind of what you'd use that style of machine for. Today also, once we've gone through the kind of introduction phase of the router, how to load cutters in safely, and all along I'll be showing the safe and correct way to do all of this. As we do at Axminster, we promote safe use of this kit. We'll be looking at a variety of cutters today, but the main job today will be a bit of freehand letter carving. Kind of nameplate engraving. So you've got a house sign, a sign for the kids' bedroom door, dog kennel. You want to carve a special router, special shape into a tabletop, some leaves, some love hearts. It's all that sort of thing. Now freehand routing is a bit difficult. It's just difficult. But what I'm going to look at, I'm going to show you my 3, maybe 4 favorite cutters, and I'm going to do a little example on each cutter as we go. But before we start, we're going to look at the anatomy of the router, just a quick one. So let's come in just a little bit closer and we'll look at this quite common shape and style of router. This is a 1/4 inch machine. Now routers come in 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. All right. The 1/4 inch is really it's an imperial size, and it's the shank size. It's the size of the shank on the cutter itself. Now there's only so big a cutter you can get on a 1/4 inch shank. Something along, or maybe this size here would be about as big as you get. Big cutting head, skinny little shank. You can obviously see the problems there. We're going to get breakage. That's where you consider, like, do I need to go up to something with a 1/2 inch shank, where the cutters can get far bigger because we've got a far stronger shank. So much so, you can get cutters this sort of size. Huge panel raising cutters, which we will be using in coming weeks. Like I say, building up your routing knowledge as we go. Okay, so let's look at physical size on the routers themselves. You just get one of our Bosch machines just here. So straight away you can see 1/2 inch router is a large machine. It's considerably more powerful than the 1/4 inch, really, to take those bigger cutters as mentioned. I tend to favour keeping my 1/2 inch router underneath my router table. The 1/4 inch router is the one that I'll take to the bench for doing handwork, for doing edge beading, and I'll even use the 1/4 inch machines on certain jig work for dovetailing and grooving and that sort of thing, which again we're going to look at in later videos. But you can see significant difference, and really it's a little bit difficult to handle the big heavy 1/2 inch router on a small bit of detail job. And like I say, what we're looking to do today is all this kind of handwork, and we're going to look at we're going to look at the different cutters, the preferred cutters to do this job. You know, this is all just kind of random messing around stuff. But if you had a house name, or like I said, your kid's door or your grandkid's door, you just want to put a little love heart or a bit of ivy down the leg of a table, or a flower, or just to add those bits of extra detail, making your work look, oh, who's that? Making your work just look a little bit more detailed. I don't know whether Ben can get in this on the camera. It's a bit dark. This is like a Viking stargazer chair that I made some time ago, and I hand routed in this Celtic knot at the top here. All right. So we're going to look at, as I said, we're going to look at that today. We'll get the complexity going more and more difficult as the weeks go on. But this is a really good introduction to your router. A lot of guys, and we get an awful lot of people that have come to us on routing courses. We have a lovely chit chat in the morning, finding out about each other and each other's experiences in woodwork and whatnot. And the common theme, I've got a router, but I'm never taking it out of the box. I'm a little bit scared of using it. And we get that. Listen guys, this is the fastest running machine you're going to have in the workshop. Some of these routers can run up to 30,000 RPM. 30,000 revolutions per minute. And when you've got a sharp, spinny, cutty thing on the bottom of it, yeah, they get a bit scary. And without that little bit of knowledge of what cutters to use and when to use a guide and what type of guide to use, sometimes you just plunge that cutter in and boom, they're off. They want to go off by themselves. And we're going to look at trying to prevent that and trying to keep it a little bit safer and make your work just that little bit better. So let's get to it. Enough of my chat, let's just see this machine in action. So I've chosen this DeWalt one. We've got a whole host of routers behind me, various shapes and sizes, from 1/4 inch Bosch to 1/2 inch Festool, 1/4 inch Bosch, and the big boy here, which is, as said, the one that we fit under the router table. Router table work is most definitely something we're going to look at going forward, but today it's just an introduction to your bench work. So loading in the cutters. Let's load in a cutter straight away. Let's just do it. Number one rule. Anybody? Okay, no, I didn't hear that. Number one rule is isolate your machine, unplug it. Let's just not rely on just switching it off. And whenever you're delving into cutters and blades, turn the machine off. What I like to do, and I've seen a few people, turn the machine upside down to put the cutter in. Nothing wrong with that, but it can make it a little bit difficult because gravity takes hold and the cutter falls down inside the collet, and you can't get the cutter positioned in the right place because it literally just wants to drop down inside the machine there. My preferred way, and this is my preferred way, is just to lie the machine on its side. Let's take that out of the way a minute or two. There we go, a bit of space. It's just lie the machine on its side. You've got complete access to what you need to do and see here now. You've got a spindle lock. There's only one spanner needed to change the cutters, and the spanner that often comes with a router is quite short. Don't go using a long one because you think you've got to get that just a little bit tighter, because the quite fine threads on the router here where the collet goes in, and you can strip these threads if you're not careful. You don't need to do them crazy tight. The rich is actually built into the collet nut and thread. There's a little safety thing which I'll go through in a moment or two. But we're going to look at hand engraving. Now, a lot of routers, if you get free cutters with the router, maybe you get a little 1/2 inch straight cutter, something like this. You know, this is a really common little cutter. They're quite difficult to control by hand. Because what happens is that cutter's revolving. You're pushing that way, you're trying to follow that letter that you've drawn on your bit of wood. It drifts. So you get, it's commonly known as cutter drift, funnily enough. And that just rotates and it'll pull the router to one side. And you think, okay, well, I'll pull it the other way. But that has the opposite effect. This cutter's still revolving that way, so we'll pull that way. They're very tough to control freehand. So I tend not to use this style of straight cutter for this freehand style of work. Right, we've got 4 cutters here. Three we're going to use. We've got a V-groove. We've got a different angle V-groove at 45 degrees and 60 degrees there. We've got a radius nose cutter. And we've got, yes, this is a straight cutter, but this one is a spiral cutter. A solid carbide spiral cutter, so it kind of looks like a drill bit. And as that's cutting there, the cutting action is far more forgiving, okay, as that's rotating. But you can see the spiral, it's got a downward pressure to the cut surface, leaving the cut surface crisp and clean. Very, very clean. In fact, I've got an example just behind here. Here we go. All just random freehand crazy kind of stuff, I know, but zero cleanup afterwards. That is straight off the cutter. There's no fluff, there's nothing to sand off, there's no breakout. Crisp and clean. That's what that spiral cutter gives you. Square bottom. Alright, so we can see on here. Ben, can you see all those, Ben?
Yeah.
We're okay, so we got the...
rotate it a little bit.
Alright, yeah, so we got good. Square. We've got the radius, we've got the 45V, and then we got the 60 degree V. All of these cutters were set at the same cutting depth of 3mm. But what a different result with each cutter. I tend to favour, myself, when I'm doing this sort of work, the 60 degree V. It's quite a delicate line, not so wide because it's a sharper angle on the cut, as you can see in comparison to the 45, but I can still get some depth. I can still go fairly deep into the material. It's quite a forgiving cutter, like I said. You don't get drift, you don't get a lot of breakout, and it's importantly easy to control. That's the cutter I'm going to start with today. So we're going to come to load our very first cutter into our router. Now, if your router's brand spanking new, you haven't got to worry about this, but it's always good to give the collet a bit of a clean. All right? Now, you can get a little old toothbrush. Don't use your missus's good toothbrush, but use an old toothbrush or blow the dust out. Because what we're trying to do is keep the fins quite clear and clean. Because these have got to compress when screwed up into the machine to actually grip that cutter. All right? Now, I don't mind, in here as well, inside the main shaft, this has got to be clean as well. You've got to make sure that's really clean in there. It doesn't matter whether that is in there like that, you've got the collet located, and then you insert the cutter, or you do it the other way around. Do that, and then load it in. It doesn't matter regardless. What is key is that you get that cutter into that collet the correct amount. Each and every cutter has a little indication there. I'm not sure whether you're going to see that, but it's called a K-line, and it's kind of minimum insertion. If that K-line wears off after use, which quite often it does, 3/4 of the way along the shank. What you don't want to do is ram that all the way in, because there's a potential it can get stuck on this area here. And you most certainly do not want to have it hanging out too far. It's fairly obvious what could potentially happen. That cutter can come out. I've got a shining example here of a cutter that didn't quite work out very well for the individual involved. So straight away we've got a large cutter on a skinny shank. So it's just pushing the limit to this shank diameter. The person couldn't get the cutting depth they wanted, so they pulled it out of the collet just to get that extra cutting height into the material, and then, well, that takes a bit of doing. So not only has he ruined his cutter, he's ruined his table insert, he's ruined his router fence, and he's certainly, he's been certainly scared in his workshop. That's certainly something you don't want to do. You just want to make sure, like I say, you get 3/4 the way along the shank there, because we don't want that happening. That is scary. Okay, so we are going to load this cutter in now. So there we go. Alright, we're picking up the thread. Here we go. You see that, Ben?
Yeah, I think so.
All good. Okay. I'm just double checking the cutter height, how much that's sticking out of the workpiece. Oops. Oh, sorry, sticking out of the collet. Where's my K-line? There it is. Alright. And I'll do it up finger tight. Supplied spanner. There we go. We've not got to go crazy tight. If we're working on a grunt scale, we've got this grunt scale that we tend to use in the skill centre a little bit. 5 grunts is really tight white knuckles. This is about a 2 grunt. You've not got to go mad on it. Like I say, there's a little safety device built into the threads here that prevent cutters coming out anyway, which we'll look at when we come to take this one out in a moment. Our cutter's in. We have, this is a plunging router. It plunges into the material nice and easily. There are fixed based routers as well, which generally are good for edge work, and the height control isn't as easy, isn't as refined, so I tend to lean towards the plunging router on a 1/4 inch to do this style of job. Okay, let me just clear a bit of bench space for you. Keep that spanner handy, we'll need that in a minute. So we've got a piece of material, nice flat piece of tulip here, piece of poplar, relatively easy to work with. It's quite nice to work with. Can be a bit fluffy, so a little bit of breakout there. But we're going to just freehand something random. I'm not even going to draw it on. I'm just going to freehand it. So I just want to secure this piece of material. Now, yes, we could get a clamp and clamp to the bench here, but there's a potential I'm going to collide with the clamp. We could use a sacrificial board, something like this. You can see this has done a bit of work for us, this board. We can lock that in the vise, put that there, screw in each corner, and then cut those screw holes out after. Nothing wrong with that, as long as you figure out your sizing, and whatever you route, you don't route into that screw. Fairly obvious. But I've got the luxury of this kind of bench style system here in the skill centre, so I'm going to use it. Okay. A couple of dogs gives me a positive to work to. Yeah. A couple of little dogs on that side. One cam clamps. And I can't quite get close enough with these clamps. I've got a little wedge system going on here. Look at that. Further in, there we go. That is secure, and what I've got now is a complete flat surface with no clamps sticking up out of the way. Nothing's going to get in my way. I can do whatever I want. If you've got to do something right up close to the edge, there is a potential that your router could tip off. It becomes unbalanced. It's an easy fix. Just get a piece of material of equal size and drop it in there for support. And you can do it this side, you can do it to the one side or the other side, whatever you want. So it's easy. But, right. So I'm going to set depth now. First thing I want to do is zero off. I'm going to plunge down. I'm just going to release this so this stopper is all free. I'm going to plunge down till my cutter touches my workpiece, ever so gently. This is a V-groove cutter, quite pointy, so you don't want to stab it into the material, give you a false reading. A lot of plunging routers, they have a plunge lock lever. Plunge down there, that's locked off, release. Extraction outlet, extraction's key on the router. They are messy machines, and the speed that they run at, they throw the waste all over the place. So I'm zeroed off there. What I mean by zeroed off is the cutter is flush with the base of the router. So in effect, zero depth of cut. Now what we have is this little device here on the side of the machine with all sorts of scales and knobs and handles. You know, some people struggle with this, but it really is, I feel, quite simple. So release a screw, drop the bar down till it touches one of the stoppers. This marker slides up and down. Move this marker to 0. Then we'll move the whole stopper up 3mm. We're going to go 3mm. Why not? Here we go. There's a 3mm gap there now. So now when I plunge that down, it comes down a further 3mm to the underside of this stop, and I've got 3mm protruding through. So it's a really good way of setting depth. There's another little method that I'll show you when I change the next cutter out. But let's get routing. So PPE, critical, eyes and ears. Let's get your eyes protected, let's get your ears protected. I've got a really good extraction system in here, and yes, I'm going to hook it up to an extractor. Definitely. Alright, because as I said, they throw the waste around. As I'm talking to you guys, I'm not going to wear a dust mask either, but if I was doing a prolonged lot of routing or something, you know, if I was doing man-made board, MDF, or really just a fair bit of routing, I'm dust mask as well, for sure. So let's get the PPE on. Alright. I'm not going to start the machine with the cutter in contact with the material. You never do that on any tool that you use. Alright, so I've released the plunge, so the cutter's up. One thing we've not just figured out really is the speed. What speed should I run these cutters at? There's such a huge variety of cutters. Ben, can we just have a look at the pan round and have a look at just a selection? This isn't half the range of cutters that are on offer in our range, let alone everybody else's. There's a huge selection of cutters. Some are massive, some are really small, and you've got to adjust the speed of your router to suit. Now on each shank, there's, like I say, there's information. You've got the K-line, you've got dimensions of a cut as well, maybe the diameter of cut, the length of cut, but there's also the maximum running speed. Alright, so you've got to try and adhere to that and not go over that running speed. Yes, sometimes you do need to tweak that speed up or down just a smidge to help with finish, but you really should not go above that recommended max speed. Something like this could run at 20 to 28,000 RPM. I would never try and run something like that at 20 to 28,000 RPM. This one should be running at around 12,000, so it's kind of half, because it's more than twice the cutter. And I feel if I was to try and run that at 28,000 RPM, my router table might take off like a helicopter. I don't know. We'll talk more about that size of cutter and speeds as we get into router table use, really, because that's not a freehand cutter. That's router, strictly router table only. So I'm going to turn my machine on. Let's just, here we go. So V-groove. Straight lines, pretty good. Bear in mind there's nothing for me to follow on here. My glasses were steaming up as we were going actually, so I couldn't really see a lot. This definitely was almost guesswork. So straight lines, some nice curvy stuff, some real squiggles, but all at a controlled depth and all really neat. There's not a lot of fluff on the top or breakout anywhere. And it just felt really good in the hand, easy to control. It didn't drift off anywhere. You can see between each letter the benefit of a plunge router. So I could lift the cutter out controlled and then drop it back down where I wanted it to take on the next letter. So that is probably my fave as we go. That's the one I can tend to drift towards as I do these sort of things. Let's have a look at another one and do a very similar sort of thing. So again, we're going to isolate the machine. There we go. So the machine is off. I don't need to take the extraction outlet out, extraction hose out, and we're going to remove the cutter. Now, spin the lock. There we go. I undid that and then it went tight again. That's the little safety lock I was talking about. So don't kind of get your router and send it back to the manufacturer or where you bought it from because you think that it's threaded. It's a safety thing built into all routers that you undo it and then it goes tight and you get the spanner again and then undo it like a second time. It's that kind of safety lock that's within the threads here. There we go. Careful when you're pulling the cutter out. They are sharp, by the way, extremely sharp. But that's the V-groove. All right, and 60-degree V-groove. Really neat, easy to control cutter. I think we're going to go with the radius nose cutter next. There we go. Now these come in a variety of different sizes. This is kind of medium, I'd say. They come in a lot smaller sizes. Quite good for lettering. Not my fave, but you know, it's one that was used on this sort of job. Now this is very uniform, very regular, and although my hand routing is pretty good, to be honest, it's not this good. It isn't this good. What we've got is we followed a template. So you pin or clamp your template in place, and with a guide bush, cutter through the centre of that guide bush, you follow the letters. And again, guide bush work, following templates, even making templates is something we'll cover in later videos. So very uniform, very, in my opinion, boring. Should I say that? I don't know. That's the other end of the scale, really. That's done with a V-groove, really deep V-groove. It's been broken through there, but these are painted. So these are painted up and then sanded over, and really makes the lettering stand out. It looks quite nice. It does. So if you're doing door signs for people's houses and stuff, that's a terrific way of really making that lettering stand out. I will load in the radius nose cutter. Now the K-line isn't quite as visible on this cutter because it's old. It's been kicking around a while, done a lot of work this cutter, but still good and sharp. So I'm 3/4 of the way along the shank. Do it up by hand, one pinch, 2 grunts, and we're in. Another piece of material. There we go. Locked in, ready to go. What we've got, I want to set depth again, but I'll show you a slightly different method. Okay, now when I was setting that 3mm on that depth there, all these little lines on here, all the little increments from 0 to 50mm, they all went a bit fuzzy. It was difficult for me to see. Eyesight's not what it was. Now there's another way we can do it. We still zero off, so let's release this, get that out of the way, release all that. Zero off, putting cutter to workpiece, 0 depth of cut. Remember, we've isolated the machine at this point. Now, I'm sure you all do keep your drill bits all in a nice tidy box like this, in everyone in its right hole. I'm sure you do. Everybody does, don't they? But everybody's got a set of drill bits, something like this, and they're normally in 0.5 millimeter increments from 10 down to 1 mil. Excuse me. 3 mil depth of cut. What'll do? 3 mil drill bit. Nothing special here. Remember, we're still zeroed off, so the cutter is level with the base of the router. 3 mil. 3 mil. It's as easy as that. So if you work into particular depth settings and you want to repeat that, I always do 3 mil, but I always struggle to find my 3 mil. There it is. Easy as that. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Okay. I'm just going to do some more lettering. You'll see a difference with this one, I feel. It's certainly going to be a wider cut because it's a wider cutter. But let's have a look at finish, control as I go. Right. Oh, turn it on, that always helps, a bit of power. Okay, and we're coming back, don't worry folks. Here we go. Right, so power on. Okay, quite different. We've got a much wider cutting width, and that really we can't get away from. If we go in too shallow, we're not going to get a great deal of depth into the material. It didn't feel as easy to control. I think it's reasonably neat. We've got quite a bit of fluff on the top here, a bit of breakout, a bit of top breakout. And a little bit of burning. You can see some burning in the corners. Now generally burning is created by a couple of reasons. Cutter is maybe running too fast, cutter's blunt, that's a key thing. But your feed speed, the way you're moving the router, and if you're traveling too slow with it, it can build up too much friction in one area and create burning. You can see that's where I started. It was a little bit slow to start. Changed direction here, and then I kind of sped everything up a little bit because I was conscious of that burning. Not a bad job overall, not regular letters, but with lines drawn and letters drawn on there, everything's considerably neater. Not a bad job, not a bad job. It's like not my chosen cutter for that particular work, but it does okay. It does okay. We're going to change to our final cutter. We're going to use the spiral. All right, now these really are a bit of a favourite of mine, especially the small ones like these, the little down cutting spirals. Like I say, they're made from a solid carbide bar. Now, like these router cutters, these are carbide as well, but they're only carbide in the tips, these tungsten tips here. The rest of this is steel with tips brazed to it. If you want me to, I can talk a lot about cutters. I often get told to shut up about cutters because In a previous job, I used to kind of make and grind and repair cutters and blades and stuff like that. So I can talk cutters, and I can take you through the step by step of how a cutter is made. So you can see really what goes into it. I think it's riveting, really interesting. I'm not sure will you be. Maybe you can comment and let me know. I'm not so sure. Solid carbide bar, all right? Down cutting spiral, super clean on the entry. Let's check it out. So let's just isolate that machine again. Beautiful. My glamorous assistant Ben's already done that for me. What a star. If I can find the spanner, I'll put it in that place where I said I'd keep the spanners. Okay, now remember, so I've undone that and it's gone tight again. It's beyond the finger tight. That's that safety lock. Oh, whoops, missed it. Okay. Undo. Now really, technically, between cutter changes you should always clean this collet. Alright? Good practice to keep these in good condition. These will last forever if you keep them in good condition. You do the cutters up correctly. Cutters don't end up getting pulled out too far and then coming out. That would instantly damage your collet. We're loading in the spiral. Okay? As I said, it doesn't matter whether you do that first or that first, as long as it's loaded in the right way. 3/4 of the length of the shank. I can't even see a K-line on here. And then locked up. That's it, ready to go. Cutter change is so simple. And yeah, I'm going to get one more bit of board. Load that in. Load that in. I do like this system. It just locks it in so quick and easy. Cutter depth set. Which method shall I use, Ben? What do you reckon?
Oh, we like a drill bit, don't we?
Drill bit style. I like the drill bit style. That's only because I can't see the scale. Right, 3 mil. Let's do 3 mil again. Right, so there we go. I've zeroed off. You see me release this all, plunge down till my cutter hits the material, put the 3 mil drill bit in there, lock it off. There we go. We've got different heights. Just while we're in this area, we've got different heights. This flips around. It's called a turret stop. Different heights. I'll go through that in later stages because it will come into what I'm doing and my thoughts. But it's really so you can get controlled depth. If you want to go really deep into a piece of material, you don't want to go deep all in one go. Maybe you set your depth and then you flip that round so this comes up against here and doesn't go down quite so far, and you can come down in controlled stages. Your router's going to love you for it. It's not going to overload it. You're not going to overload, potentially break the cutter as well. So, there we go. It was the middle turret to 3 mil. Yes, it was. So, we're going to do just the same. Okay. Let's turn some power on. There we go. And I'm back.
So we've got a couple of questions in a minute.
Oh, let's have them now.
Yeah, let's get
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the first one was the guide was asking, is there a guide on the router to follow drawn in letters and shapes? But I think we looked at that with the template.
Most routers come with a guide bush, which is a little ring, a little template ring that sits underneath the router to follow guides. Most routers come with them. If you want to do the lettering template sort of thing, like this one, you can buy, as said, you've got that sort of thing, so we can do lettering, quite uniform stuff. Then you get a small guide bush, which comes in a kit with this sort of lettering kit, which follows this, and the small cutter goes through the middle of that ring guide bush. Let me get a guide bush that's going to suit that. 2 seconds, just dashing across the workshop. Dash. There we go. Down his back. Has he got the right size one? Close. Right. So this guide bush, it's a common thing. We're going to go through guide bush use. This would drop in here. Your cut-up goes through the guide bush. This isn't the right setup, but something like that. And then your router's here. This fits to the underside of your router, drops into whatever shape, and then what it does, it guides, it controls. You can't go off. So you could go there and then go over it again if you're not quite sure that you've got everything. Commonly used guide bushes, and we'll be doing a project or two using guide bushes. So yeah, tune in for that one. We'll be doing some quite cool stuff and maybe making templates to work with guide bushes as well, making your own templates. But shop bought ones, absolutely, definitely. Numbers and letters. Quite a common thing, to be honest. Personally, I prefer the freehand style, but whatever floats your boat. There, we've got. Oh, there's another question, wasn't there? Sorry, I'm getting carried away.
Quick one. Can you please tell me the difference between a palm router and a plunge router?
Absolutely. Palm routers are small. They're very compact machines. Generally, a palm router would be almost just the motor unit itself. Let me just turn this machine off again. I, for bench work, prefer the plunge routers. Palm routers generally are for edge trimming, almost a one-handed thing. They're very small, very light. This DeWalt piece of kit here, there's a number of different manufacturers make this sort of thing. This can drop into, I've got a cutter in there, so I've got to be a little bit careful. This can drop into a base like that and become what's called a palm router. No plunging. Palm router stroke fixed base. Similar sort of thing. But palm router, really, same sort of thinking as palm sander. One-handed in your palm. And this one, I wouldn't want to be using it on this sort of work because I want to plunge down into my material and I can't, it's so difficult to plunge that in. We've got some sort of depth control. That's what this thready bit is on here, look. But it's, you see that? It's not quite as easy to control as that plunge. Depth setting, difficult. These are great, really good for easy, quick edge moulding. So you've got a bearing guided cutter maybe, little chamfer fella like that in there, and you want to just run that round, quick, easy. Even sound effects here now. Terrific for that sort of job. A little bit limited in use. I know them as trimmers, kind of edge trimmers. They're all just a trimmer. But people like DeWalt have brought out this sort of thing, which has a couple of bases. You've got plunge base, fixed base, or kind of palm router base. The Bosch is just the same, the big Bosch. This one is exactly the same. You've got that base, which we keep that mounted underneath our router table, so we can drop the motor unit in and out really quick and easy. Underneath our router table we have this setup. You can see the plate there, hopefully, there. And connected to the underside of our router, we've got the plunging base. No, we haven't. We've got the fixed base. Okay, but like the DeWalt, like a Makita as well, I believe, and a couple of other routers, we can take this out of this base, which is a plunging base, and drop it into a fixed base. Right. So it's a good combination, and as I said, we keep this fixed underneath our router table all the time. So if we do, which is rare in here, have to do any big bench work, some heavy bench work with massive cutters, we've got an easy option of just dropping our base out, putting it into the plunge, and we're away. So hopefully that answered your question on the palm router. Okay, let's drop this one back in. It locks so quickly in and out. Do I need to reset my depth? And I don't even really need to reset the depth. It's come back down to that positive stop each time. I love it. Right. What's this one? This is spiral.
This is a spiral.
S-P-I... Oh. I'm only joking. Hey, I'm from Gloucester. No, I shouldn't say that. Sorry, folks from Gloucester. Right. Anyway. Distracting me, Bill. We are going to use a spiral down-cut solid carbide. This one, I think, is about 4, maybe 5 mil in diameter. I don't know whether you've noticed, whilst I've been doing this, I've been bending over and crouching down and just trying to see what I'm doing. Visibility is important on this sort of thing. Why not make life a little bit easy for yourself? Bring in a stool, sit down, make yourself comfortable. You're automatically at a better viewing height, I feel, and you can actually take your time. It's just more comfortable. You're not awkward. You don't want to rush it because my shoulder's aching. It just feels good. So release the plunge, put the machine carefully down on the table. That felt really good. Normally with the straight cutter, I'd be fighting against that drift. Remember we talked about the drift at the beginning of the video here? I'd be fighting to try and find that line that I want. Yes, this is a bit curvy and a bit random, but if I wanted to follow a straight line, you know, with this particular cutter, it's so easy. You've got that control. So if I've got a straight line to follow, it's something that we can do fairly easily. So let's just do one more cut with that. There we go. I've got no power.
Oh, sorry, it was me.
Ah, there we go. Right, that helps. Turn it on, Craig. Here we go. Right. Something that is just like the extraction to pull through. Something that, I mean, they're not dead straight, but wow. Trying to do this with a straight cutter, you'd be over here somewhere with that drift coming this way and drift coming that way if you're pulling towards you. So the spirals, big fan, like spirals. So, well guys, it's gone super quick. The introduction to your router, just to have a play, get some cutters out of the box and just try some of this work. Remember loading in the cutters, isolate the machine, 3/4 the way along the shank. Your PPE. I hope you found it useful. I've certainly enjoyed it. I think Ben's enjoyed it as well. This is going to be a regular Wednesday wouting workshop. So please join us every Wednesday. Don't forget Colwyn's videos if you're a turner or intrigued about turning. Thanks very much for watching the Skill Centre at Home series. We're bringing the Skill Centre to you. Thank you very much. Bye now.